podcast. So much to talk about today. Today, we're going to be getting into recruitment news, signing days tomorrow. We're going to be bringing on ESPN Plus reporter and broadcaster Luke Winstel. He's going to join the show. Breaking news he just revealed to us. We're going to share momentarily. Then we're going to talk about the Georgia Elite Classic. It's going to be next week, an exciting event. 4 games, going to start early, practices. It'll be a lot of fun. A bunch of kids going to come down. So excited. Cannot wait for that. It'll be a lot of fun. And then we'll get to NFL Week 15, and I'll obviously preview some bowl games and things like that. But we're excited. How you feeling today, Craig?
Feeling good. I think this year's Georgia Elite Classic will be really special. It's the 10th year. There's just been so much buildup, and I just think with the type of players we have coming, we're going to be able to do a lot of good work, and it'll be an exciting time for them to kind of get together, meet some guys from different schools. I think there's going to be a lot going on for sure.
Yeah, so, Craig, you've done an event for how long now?
Since 2013.
2013. Okay, so you have about 9 years of experience. So tell us, how does Georgia Elite Classic work? Tell us how it is on the day-to-day. What are some things you have to do? And then how has the event overall been for you?
So when it first started, there were obviously other all-star games. We wanted to build our own and really create an opportunity for people to get to see the younger classes, especially the junior class. That's the biggest time for your recruiting. But then later on, we would add a senior game, and it's really become an excellent platform. I mean, it all started that first year. We had tremendous players in there, DJ Slayton, Mitch Hyatt, some of the top recruits in the state that went on to make NFL rosters. So it just had a good foundation from the start. And then we added a middle school game. That became a huge hit. Rusty Manziel came on. I mean, Graham, and all of these guys have helped build it. And then I think moving it to Rome was the biggest thing, because we used to stay over by the Battery, and we would have it at McEachern, which was nice, but we'd have to take buses back and forth, deal with the elements, the weather. So having it in Rome has just been outstanding. Just having kind of a 3-day vacation, it takes pressure off the kids. They're not on the clock as much. And then it's just a exciting build-up for the game.
Yeah, I can't wait. This is my first one. So I think it'll be really exciting. I'll be calling the senior game. I can't wait for that and cutting some highlights up in the booth. So it'll be a lot of fun. Definitely excited for the 3-day, kind of shindig down there. I think it'll be a lot of fun. We got a lot of people coming up too. So it'll be definitely a lot of fun seeing the players play in the All-Star game, and even, put it all on the line for the seniors for their kind of last game.
Yeah, so a funny story. I mean, there's been so many great performances, but there was a receiver from North Gwinnett that kind of played both sides. We had spring 2015, I think it's KJ Hancock was his name. He probably only had about 7 or 8 catches during his season, and then he came in to play for the Georgia Elite, because, I mean, North Gwinnett was stacked with high prospect receivers. He came in, he had 5 catches, I think 2 touchdowns, close to 200 yards. He got a Syracuse offer after it. He won the MVP of the game, and he wasn't really on the radar after that. That's an exciting element. We'll have so many players from all these different classes. So if you think about it, 8, so yeah, you have about 5 or 6 recruiting classes represented in it. So you get a look at the seniors all the way down to some of the top middle schoolers. So I just think it's exciting, and really the best part of it is just the kids getting to, as you said, talk to each other about the process. They're all going through a similar recruiting. Everyone's different, but kind of get advice from other guys. If you're the 2-star guy, 3-star guy, getting to talk to some of the 4-star guys that have already taken their trips, already gone to the camps, just kind of what to look forward to, and just a good opportunity to network.
Yeah, I agree. We talked about it in I think our last show on Friday about the opportunity it gives for players, them being able to network, obviously get to know some of the coaches. You never know what that could turn into. So I think it's an awesome event. I really can't wait. But without further ado, man, we got to reveal our top 35 list. Obviously, we're going to narrow this down before next week to a top 10. This is Square Atlanta, I think, first inaugural top 10 ever. So it's kind of designed by me and Craig. Some top players we thought, that's played football this year. So I'll start with the top 10. I'll let Craig go. Obviously, this is in no particular order. This is just the top 35 players we think. So, again, no order. So, we got Jeremy Helinski, quarterback for one, incredible season. Had the big upset. He's a 3-star now, recently committed to Wake Forest. Phenomenal player. Another player under the radar, running back for Parkview, Kyer Spain, 2,383 yards. Really balled out this season, was big in their games, had a couple 200-yard games. Phenomenal player. Prentice Nolan, 55 touchdowns to just 4 interceptions, won a state title this year. Incredible throw of the football, has great ball placement. Aaron Philo, I mean, just go look at the state championship game. I guess I think who they played, Bowden? Who they play? Oh, Swainsboro. They played Swainsboro. Yeah, incredible game for him. He really balled out. I mean, he was putting the ball. The ball placement was incredible. Just where he was throwing the ball, pinpoint accurate throws, leading his receivers in stride. Thought that was incredible. He makes the list. Jaden Gibson, wide receiver for Rabun County, makes our list as well. Running back for South Paulding. I think he's still undecided where he's going to commit to, but Jamarion Wilcox, another player, had an incredible season out there in South Paulding. Another player that made the list, Bailey Stockton, Prince Avenue Christian. Laid it all on the line, had a broken collarbone in the state championship game. Still, put everything on the line, performed brilliantly. I don't know how he did that, honestly, but, I mean, he definitely makes our list. Owen Phillips, he led 7-8 in sacks this year, 15.5, played great his senior season out there in Milton. I thought he was a wrecking ball, wrecking force. I think he had 3 sacks in that playoff game against Grayson. Definitely has to make our list, Owen Phillips. And then 9 would be Joshua Barker, defensive tackle for Cal, led all in sacks, 19.5 at the defensive tackle position. You don't really see that a lot. Usually it's the edge rusher, so shout out to him and what he meant for Cal this year. And then Eli Barrow, I mean, he had, 186 tackles this season? I mean, that's incredible. That's a lot, putting your body on the line. Sure tackler, definitely had to make the list.
He's a guy I said looked like Meanie from Waterboy out there.
Yeah.
He's just a massive
exactly.
guy.
Yes.
Because we saw his stats all year long, and then watching the 4A state championship game, Najee, Eli Burrow's really big. You're like,
Yes.
yeah,
Dude's
he was
huge.
a beast. So 186 tackles, the way he flew around,
Yeah.
he really gave them a chance to win this year. I mean, that top 10 list right there is incredible.
Yeah.
And then Bailey Stockton, he put up those numbers. He missed 3 games. Yeah, he came back, but over 1,000, 1,200 yards receiving, and he missed 3 games. So he was outstanding.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll go through some of these other names. So, yeah, if you guys thought those 10 were impressive, I agree. But, yeah, Nick Woodford, Northeast, he was atop the entire state. He's only a sophomore, right?
Yep.
So one of the only sophomores on this list. You have Jack Lawson, linebacker at Milton, one of their studs for sure. Caleb Downs at Mill Creek. He did it all for them except kick this year. He threw touchdown passes, rushed for him, ran for him, and then held down that safety role. Jamal Anderson, Mill Creek, he was a huge deal for them. Came in on special teams, had a big return in the state championship, and just one of the first guys that text Coach Lovelady on game day, just talking about how much just his career meant to him with the Darius Cannon. I think he had one of the breakout seasons across the state this year. He's a name that everyone knew by the end of the season. He was even a big playmaker on the return game all season, and then especially at receiver. He helped take his team to a finals appearance. Wilkes Albert, he was the hero in the 4A state championship game for Benedictine, had 28 tackles in that game, including the goal line stand to clinch back-to-back state titles. Harlem Diamond, Cedartown, he was their leading receiver, leading rusher, 4-year starter, an absolute beast. Kewan Brown was among the top rushers in the entire state this season, an absolute touchdown machine. Super 11 AJC for South Atlanta, and he's still undecided. Is that right?
Yeah, he decommitted from Purdue, just picked up a Louisville offer, so I think he's still undecided. Yep.
So, yeah, we need to watch for him. He's just an outstanding player. And then Justice Haynes, a 5-star.
What can you say?
The best running back to ever come through it.
Yeah.
He had one season at Buford, was just outstanding. Then Ethan Barber from Alpharetta, one of, I think, 3 tight ends on our list. He was a monster this season, a big guy.
Yeah, definitely was a lead. I'll go 21 through 30. Jelani Thurman, tight end, really good with the ball in his hands. I think he's going to Ohio State. Just dynamic, man. I mean, it's more than he just seems like fluid, elusive when he catches the ball. Watch the state championship game. He just catches not like a bulldozing tight end. He's like fluid, like kind of reminds me of Travis Kelce. Just he can make those cuts on you and get to where he needs to go. So he made the list. Kayan Lee, obviously going from Cedar Grove. There's been some kind of rumors that he may kind of flip, but I don't know. We'll see. He's going to Ohio State. We had to put Bryce Hicks on this list. I mean, running back, Guy's incredible. I mean, he had a multiple 3, 4 touchdown games in the playoffs, had a jump pass TD. I mean, the guy's incredible with the ball. I think state championship, he had 2 touchdowns,
Took 37 carries against Coldplay.
205 yards. I mean, come on, man. He had to make the list. Caden McDonald, what was it, 44 tackles for loss this year, 409 rushing yards as a defensive tackle, and what, like 10 plus,
touchdowns.
11 touchdowns. He had to make the list. We put Juju Lewis on here. I mean, his state championship performance alone, 531 yards, everything on the line. He did lose by a lot, but, I mean, he did everything he could to try to will his team to victory. Freshman quarterback had to make this list. I think Jaden Barnes for Hughes, another guy really explosive with the ball in his hands. Another guy we definitely have to put on this list. And it's going to be Storm Hunt from Thompson, 8 interceptions this season. Led the entire state of Georgia there. Was incredible with the ball. Other tight end that made it, Hunter Teal from Walton. I thought he had an incredible season. He was kind of that sure kind of guy you could throw it to the middle of the field, and he'd be dangerous with it. He's another guy I think that played incredible. And then third, he was a guy I did tell the tape over. I think, if you go look at his huddle, he had a Khalil Mack-esque type of play. I showed Craig before we came on today. I mean, he's literally just snatched the ball from the running back and took it all the way home for the touchdown. If you go and look at Khalil Mack against the Atlanta Falcons, he does a similar type of play. He's a guy I think that's going to be playing in our Elite Classic as well, but he's a guy I think that needs to make the list. We got to scratch out Harlem Diamond,
Yeah,
though.
I put that twice. All right, but the final 4, I suppose, Mikael Wood for Mill Creek. He was their leading receiver this season. He also had huge plays in the return game. If you look at his leap from his junior to senior season, it's remarkable. From 300 yards receiving to over 1,000. He was so key for them all season long. As Cam Robinson, that run game and the RPO stepped up, Mikael Wood was that guy to make the big plays. Bryce Bowens, Carver Atlanta's quarterback, he led him to another big run this year to the semis. And Najeh pointed out 0 interceptions this season. That's how good Coach Miles had Bowens. He's a true playmaker and also make plays on the ground. Really tough runner. We saw that in the Bash. Outstanding player and leader. Then his teammate Aquinas Clemens had 44 tackles for loss this season on the defensive line. Every coach we talked to that played Carver this season was talking about how good that defensive tackle is for them. The 4-year starter, an outstanding career for Carver Atlanta, getting thrown out there as a freshman and then leading them to just such a historic run these last 2 seasons. William Parton, another Milton linebacker, absolute beast. And then Timothy Roberson, a cornerback at Valdosta. I think he finishes his varsity career with, I think it's over 20 interceptions. He's their all-time leader.
8 this season.
Yeah, and 8 this season. So he's just an absolute ball hawk. So I really like this list so far. It's going to be tough narrowing it down, but congratulations to all those guys.
Yes, and we're going to add one more player. Obviously, we did a player twice right here, so we'll add that other one later on, and then we'll compile this list, break it down where Craig can reveal it at the Georgia Classic. But congrats to all the players that made this list. Again, it's our first annual list, so don't come for us too hard. We know we'll get better from it, obviously. But one more thing I want to reveal before we actually go to our next segment and we bring on Luke Winstel. Has some breaking news. Definitely want to share that. But I wanted to shout out these 2 players. I thought Bo Boozer. I'm going to do a tell of the tape on these 2 players, my final one for the rest of the year. He had a great season. I mean, he really is a sure tackle. He's only 5'9", about 170, 175. Not a big dude, but he's a real sure tackle. He doesn't hesitate. He goes all the way through the hole, attacks the running back, attacks the player that he's trying to tackle. I thought, he had a great season down there in Ringo, so I wanted to shout him out, obviously. And the other player I wanted to definitely shout out was Chip Cooper. He's a guy that, he had an incredible season. They didn't go far. They lost to Nick Wolford in Northeast out there in the playoff game. But peep this. His playoff game, he had 381 yards, 4 touchdowns. All season, he had 107.4 passer rating. And what really stood out to me looking at his tape, he could really fit the ball in really tight windows. When I say tight, I mean tight. So one of the plays I'm going to reveal. So it was a shallow cross. His receiver's here, the corner's here, the safety is right here. So he has to fit it in that small window. It's a throw you see when you probably play in the NFL. Fits it right before that safety can come up and make a play on the ball, right there where only the receiver can get it. So I wanted to shout out Chip Cooper. Had a great season, threw for 2,431 yards, 23 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions. He had 12 rushing touchdowns this year, 35 total touchdowns. Had a really good season. So wanted to shout him out. I was very impressed with his tape. He is a senior, but he played really good for Worth County this year. So I definitely wanted to shout him out. I'm going to do a tell the tape on those 2 before the year ends. But yeah, those 2 really impressed me. So I wanted to shout them out.
You said they're going to be at Elite?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think they'll be at elite. But those are two guys that impressed me this year that I'm gonna finish my tape on.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
what you said about Cooper, though, just being able to find the window, that's not just getting the ball out quickly. That's knowing what the defense is doing.
Yeah.
And having that vision, being able to kind of manipulate it with your eyes, knowing where your receivers are. Those are outstanding numbers. Plus the rushing touchdowns, just 3 interceptions. I think we saw great quarterback play this season across the classifications. And I mean, there's just so many guys that had just the 30-plus touchdowns and then 1, 2, 3 interceptions. And I'm sure you could look at those plays and it's like, okay, maybe this one was a tip pass. This one was miscommunication. I mean, there was just some really strong focus at the quarterback position this season. Outstanding for Georgia.
Yeah, and I wanted to shout out also Zaire Hardaway. I think he had a good season. Obviously, he didn't, make the Georgia League Classic, but I thought his growth from his sophomore year to his junior was incredible. Unfortunately, he got hurt. He had a broken. I think it was something to do with his elbow. I can't remember the exact extent of his injury, but I thought he was a guy that played exceptionally well. He really impressed me this season, seeing him up in person, seeing how he threw the football, seeing how he took care of himself, his body. And I was able to interview him. I thought he did great this year. I think next year he's going to have that. I say this year was his breakout season, but I think next year he's going to even do even more. And he impressed me. I think he had a game he almost threw for 500 yards. So, guy that's really impressive.
And then one more thing about Douglas County. Before the bash, you were telling me they're dealing with a ton of injuries this season.
Yeah.
Well, they were moving guys around. He comes out, leads them to this incredible start. He's pacing the entire state in passing, and then he goes down, misses 4 or 5 games, comes back and still balls out, passing close to 75%, over 250 yards a game. I mean, he was outstanding this season. So I agree. I think he's going to come back. And they even wanted a rematch with Hughes.
They did. They
were ready for it. They weren't scared. So I think Zaire is going to be back for sure. I just want to see a full season from him, and I think he'll be at the top of that leaderboard for sure.
Yes, definitely. So, guys, that's all we got for high school. Definitely stay tuned. Go to scoreatl.com for all of our content, and definitely go to Score Atlanta YouTube page. We'll have all that content posted. Actually, coming up for Georgia League Classic, all the players. So we hope you guys enjoy the content. But we're going to go and bring on Luke Winstel. He has some breaking news this year. We're going to get into some Clemson football, all the major recruits. Tomorrow is signing day. So much to talk about. So let's go ahead and bring him on. What's going on, Luke?
Hey, how's it going, y'all? Thank you for having me on.
Of course, man. We appreciate you tuning in.
That breaking news to start the show, that's awesome. And you've been outstanding. I just want to say it all season long for years. You are the guy. You are the Adam Schefter of high school sports, just breaking all the news.
Thank you. That means a lot, Craig. I appreciate it. Read your stuff for a while, of course. Always love watching what you guys do, too.
Appreciate that, man. But, man, go ahead and break the news. We've seen the text. We didn't want to reveal it. We know you do your thing, man, and you're really good with breaking news. So tell us what just happened with the Grayson coach, Adam Carter. What just happened?
Yeah, so that's been what I've been trying to digest the past few minutes. I sent you a text, maybe a few exclamation points, a few capital letters in there of, hey, did you see that? And it was confirmed on Twitter, one of the accounts run by the coaches that post the different job openings and jobs taken. So I wasn't the one that had the source, but I saw their posting and I said, wait, the Adam Carter from Grayson, is it him? And of course it is. He's going down to Lowndes. Adam Carter, the new head coach down there in South Georgia. So it's a spot that he's familiar with, but it's a big move. You talk about Grayson, 2020 state champions. That is kind of a little mind blower for me, I would say.
No, definitely. I mean, what he's doing with that program, I think they made the quarters this year, right, against Milton. That was quarterfinals.
Yeah, they lost to Lowndes.
They lost to Lowndes this year. Now he's going to Lowndes, and then he's moving down south. It's just like, now it's like, okay, who does Grayson get to replace him? That's kind of a program, year in, year out, they're going to be in the playoffs. But now it's like, whoa, that's kind of a bombshell.
Oh, that's one of the biggest ones. I mean, you've broken some stories over this season where it's like, okay, that's unexpected. This one really is. And I think with Adam Carter at Grayson, he was holding down that Metro Atlanta powerhouse. We usually don't see the Metro Atlanta powerhouse guys go and take these South Georgia jobs. So I just think that's exciting. I really do.
And they say director of football operations as well on one report that I saw. So I don't know how much that weighs, but it sounds like, that is his program. He's going to Grayson. He's got tons of talent there. So no reason with the talent in South Georgia that he can't make Lowndes a team that, defensively maybe needs a little reshaping and continue to shape that program into what we've seen in the past of the dominant types, the title town type.
And one more question about that breaking news. Why do you think he decided to go from Grayson to Lowndes, just with everything he's built there and kind of what he's done there with that group and all the talent that he has at Grayson? Like, why move to South Georgia when a lot of people want to play at Grayson, you think?
It's interesting. I've been looking through some of the quotes. There's a news report on WALB.com talking about just his statement on it. And I haven't seen much in terms of why from the direct source. So this is just speculation, but I'd have to think, I know, there's plenty of money in 7A football. I would guess that's probably something that might have come in as well. I don't know anything about that specifically, but I would say that, down south, got good coaches. And overall, I think it's a different challenge for Coach Carter. And I think that's a program that's a destination program, even though he's already won at Grayson. He's already at one there. I think Lowndes is the destination too. So, but it's kind of tough. You see the transition. It's two top tier programs. Grayson arguably is in a better spot. So it's something that's like, we'll have to hear it from him because I, don't know.
Yeah, definitely. Now, Luke, tell us a little bit about kind of your role and what some things you do. I know you worked for On3, you're ESPN Plus broadcaster. You report on any Clemson news as far as recruitment, but what does your job kind of entail? What do you do on a day-to-day? Just tell us, just walk us through a day with Luke Winstel.
Yeah, so the Clemson Sports I work for is Clemson Sports Talk, not the On3, but a different one. So for Clemson Sports Talk, recruiting coverage for them it's a little different. Clemson's very focused on a group of guys that they offer. So right now they're not even over 50 offers in their 24 class. So the thing for us that we focus on is when Clemson gets involved with the guys when they're freshmen, sophomores, and starts talking to them, we build those relationships and then cover their recruitment throughout the way. Covering for Clemson, a lot of the culture is very unique there. So the way they pursue players, the way that they handle things in recruitment, and the way that they emphasize Georgia with Coach Kahn that used to coach in Georgia, the high school level. So their emphasis on recruiting in Georgia is something that is really a focus for me and what we do.
That's so funny. All comes back to Grayson, Mickey Kahn.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you that. I think you kind of answered my question. Like, why is it? Because we've seen a lot of Georgia players go there, and then you interviewed Khalil Barnes, and he said it felt like home. It felt like a lot of players that are from Georgia play at Clemson. So is it because solely of Kahn, or is it just they like Georgia players? What are some of the reasons why so many Georgia players like going there?
Yeah, so Coach Kahn is a name I hear a lot over in Georgia because he is one of the roots that, because of coaching at Grayson, he's got a coaching tree of his own from his time there, but he's got a lot of connections from that time. So when they want to dip into Georgia, even if he's not the position coach for a player, they usually have something to do with, oh, I talked to Coach Kahn, or I met him, or he extended the offer. So I hear a lot about that, but also Coach Nick Eason, very familiar with Georgia, from the Georgia area as well. So he's one that they brought in, poached him from Auburn. He was doing some good work there. Clemson said, all right, come do it over here. So Eason has really helped the D-line recruiting and the defensive recruiting. So they've got a dynamic coaching staff that has been able to reach into Georgia and really do well there. So the combination of efforts and also the combination of the fact that a lot of Clemson's positions of need in the 23 class, defensive back, defensive line, there's been players in Georgia that fit the system and fit that culture well.
Yeah, I'll ask one question. So, on our end, I mean, we have events. We basically just cover the results. We're looking at high school just from the high school level. You're looking at it from a recruiting perspective. You're covering all those stories, kind of seeing how the recruiting classes are shaping out. So when you focus on that, how does that just help you give a better understanding of just what's at stake in these games, what a big performance means for a certain player? Just how's that kind of impact your approach?
Yeah, it's really interesting to see. One of the things I like to ask and hear about is the trajectory of a recruit. So a lot of my recruiting interviews or introductions will talk about, how did you get discovered? What happened? And sometimes you get the same stuff for different guys. And sometimes you have the people like a Julian Lewis that's been a big deal since middle school, or a Trevor Lawrence like that. But a lot of the trajectory, there's sometimes like Zion Ferguson's a guy I covered, not as much for Clemson, but just covering in Georgia, that I think I remember one of the things that helped blow him up was strong tape against Travis Hunter and Collins Hill. So some of the things of, there's a Parkview defensive end right now that Coach Brian Miller's been pushing, and he's a younger guy and had a great game against Grayson. So you look at, if you do it against quality opponents, all of a sudden that kind of checks a box in your head of like, oh, okay, it's different than if you're playing in, 1A ball in Montana. It's different. No offense to Montana, but it's just a different standard. So you understand some of these games, especially when you have a lower class team. Like I saw Carver Atlanta played Buford. A couple of their guys played really well. Some momentum heads in their direction. So those kinds of things that you see, if you can pinpoint specific spots and specific games, as this guy did really well here and then picked up a few offers in the next week. We track that. Clemson's usually a little later to offer. They really take their time, due diligence kind of thing. But covering in Georgia, we see that happen where there can be an avalanche if you have a good first 4-game tape. And we've seen plenty of that this year.
And actually, speak to me on that too, Luke. You just mentioned, I think, a great point. How important is it for players? Let's say they're under the radar, they're not getting a lot of notice, but then they go and they perform against upper echelon talent, against, like, let's say a Buford or a Cedar Grove or one of those top programs like a Grayson, and they go out there and they ball out. How important is that when it comes to the recruiting world?
Yeah, it's important. It can be an eye opener for sure. You look at some things like, I know you guys cover the Corky Kell Classic heavily. Those types of games can really elevate people. So I've noticed, trying to think of some specific examples, I would say one that I remember, I know we're talking about Grayson again, but Tyler Atkinson had a lot of hype coming out of middle school, and then comes into the Corky Kell game against Marietta, has some explosive looking plays, and we say, okay, it's not just hype. We kind of check that box. So those are some stories we see in those kind of situations for sure.
And I have a question just about this year's recruiting class for Clemson. Obviously, they're hitting Georgia really hard. Last time I checked, it was like 12 players from Georgia, only 3 from South Carolina. But what we're noticing is it's pretty much all defensive guys, with the exception of Peyton Straco. I mean, even Khalil Barnes, he's going to be a DB there. So what does that say about kind of what they're focused on right now, going to Georgia and just getting all these defensive studs?
The crazy thing was, so as you mentioned, Barnes DB, they're looking at him. I think you told me safety and nickel were the 2 spots that he might fit best. So for Barnes coming in, that's the 5th defensive back from Georgia that Clemson's picked up. So why are they doing that? I think this year in Georgia, the defensive back class is especially deep. You look at, Clemson hasn't even gotten all of the top guys, but they've got 5 good ones coming in. So there's some guys like Avion Terrell that, sure, they're highly rated. They're pretty highly touted. A lot of people know that name around Atlanta, but I think Avion should be even higher. He's the next great cover corner to come out of Georgia. So why are they doing that? I think the evaluations, I think these are guys that play 7-on-7 really well and have those cover skills that they develop year round. And with the 7-on-7 culture being so strong in Georgia, I mean, I was at the Grind Factory tryout on Saturday, right after state championships, a week after. It's 7-on-7 season already here. And you don't see that in every state. And even when you do see those things happening, it might not be with the emphasis or with the level of, they had several 4-stars out there on the field and, out around the environment, taking things in. So having that level of talent, playing 7-on-7, having so many Georgia guys travel out to Vegas, for example, to play in OT7 or playing in some of those big events. You've got cover guys in Georgia that are year-round intense football against high-level competition, playing in the Cam Newton program like Shelton Lewis, C1N, having Pac-Man Jones on the sideline as one of your coaches in May. Like, those are some of the things that separate Georgia. I think one thing that makes it different, especially for the DBs, is the trainers. Like Oliver Davis has trained Brandon Strozier and Avion Terrell and some of the others. And OD is very well known even in NFL circles as a trainer. So having him in that, training at North Cobb and those areas, and having that access, Georgia's defensive back prospects in this class look very refined. We're looking at guys like Terrell that could come in and play as an underclassman. Barnes could play sooner than people think. So looking at it that way, but also the D-line talent in Georgia, like Vic Burley, for example, is someone that I might even be higher than most on. New 5-star in 24/7. So those are the things that, Georgia, they've got the big guys that fit Clemson's profile for defensive fronts. And Clemson's had success recruiting in Georgia. So why not come back? It almost feels like it's in-state recruiting the way they treat it.
Let me ask you this. You brought up another good point. Okay, so defensive back, that's kind of what Clemson's targeted out of Georgia. Obviously, they still got Vic Burley, who they got, and Straco, and several others. Ted Lander, who you mentioned, I think is really good. Sure tackler.
He's going to be on special teams, I think, next season.
Incredible. Maybe. How long, Luke, does it take for it to kind of matriculate and kind of everything to kind of culminate and come together when you got superior talent like a Terrell, you got a Khalil Barnes coming in, you got, I think, Robert Billings is going there, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. How long does it take all that to kind of mesh together where you got a good team, defensively in the secondary, you got all the talent. Of course, with your veterans are there too. How long does it take all that to kind of mesh together, you think?
Yeah, I think for Clemson, I would say I'd give it 2 years on these guys. I think that's where the choke point kind of happens of the old guys are kind of moving out, and Clemson has that need of the youth coming in. So the old guys start to kind of graduate, move on to the NFL or whatever's next for them. The young guys come in, get some playing time next year on the high end, and then I would say 2 years from now is where they plug in. The defensive line, people have plenty of questions. There's a lot of opportunity to play early for those recruits like Peter Woods, Vic Burley, Stephylan Green, who we might not talk enough about. I know like Jeremy Johnson from On3 is very high on Stephylan. So the types of guys that could plug in there, I think for Clemson to have those Georgia names, it's going to take probably 2 years. And one example is like a Nate Wiggins type. He plugged in, got in this year, breaking out towards the end of the season. So now he's becoming a name. And then eventually he'll start to rise up some boards if he continues this momentum throughout the offseason into next year.
And then we've seen the last couple of years, Clemson, they've kind of been in that conversation towards the start of the season, middle of the season, and they kind of have that upset loss. This year, it was Notre Dame, then they got upset again by South Carolina. So what do you think they need to do to get back kind of to that glory in that Deshaun Watson era they had? A bunch of superior talent in the defensive line, great secondary, great offensive line. Trevor Lawrence era where they were competing and contending for titles. What do they need to do to kind of get back to that place, if you had to say?
It'd be easy to say quarterback. I would say from my perspective, you've got to win recruiting battles at receiver. That is huge right now. And they didn't do a ton of that. They got Noble Johnson coming in, 4-star from Texas. He's my personally highest rated, I think consensus highest rated in the class as well, from Rockwell, Texas. He'll be good, big body receiver, physical guy, can manhandle corners on the boundary. So that'll be good. Ronan Hannafin coming in from the Northeast region. Curious to see what he can do because that level of competition is not as simple as maybe a Georgia 7A where we could say, oh, yeah, we know he's battle tested. To me, I'd be curious to see a little more from him on that higher level. He's a 4-star, so highly touted as well. And Tyler Brown from South Carolina, smaller, super fast, can add an extra dimension. But right now for Clemson, got to find those guys that can really get the separation and take the top off, be very explosive for you. The offense at times this past season felt stagnant, and that's part of why South Carolina game, second half, couldn't get it going. Notre Dame really never got it going offensively. And they would have some drives where they would engineer it down the field and chip away, but they didn't have that big play explosiveness until Cade Klubnik was in the ACC championship game against UNC. But until that point, there was no taking the top off, no jump ball to DeAndre Hopkins or downfield to Sammy Watkins like we were used to in the past. So that idea for Clemson of the running backs are good, the tandem's good. Phil Maffa, Georgia guy as well, over at Clemson is part of that tandem. So they're good. The defense will be fine. They're going to plug and play. They'll go through some trials early in the season and have to fix some things with the youth they have next year. But I don't worry too much about Wes Goodwin in that defense right now. Thinking about offensively, got to be more explosive. That's a non-negotiable.
And before we go, I'll let you ask the next question, Craig, after this one. So I thought he brought up another good point. Like receiver, and even thinking of the NFL draft, like I haven't heard a lot of like top tier receivers lately coming from Clemson. I just thought about it. I mean, great point. So they had Mike Williams back in the day. They had DeAndre Hopkins. You know, they had I'm missing some names, but they had a bunch of studs at the receiver position, like back in the heyday with Lawrence and T Higgins. They had T Higgins at one point, who's I think is the number one receiver in the NFL. Justin Ross is another good receiver they had. Obviously, you know, unfortunate with kind of the injury he had, but they had top tier receivers, but we haven't heard that lately. And he kind of mentioned what do you think it is. Do you think that receiver production, obviously you mentioned taking the top off the defense, being more consistent there, do you think that plays a part into kind of the struggles they've had at the QB position? Because I feel like the QB position hasn't been signified since Trevor Lawrence has left. I mean, obviously you had DJ Ugale, who was a 5-star, but we've seen his struggles. In the first game of the season against Georgia Tech, he kind of struggled in, and throughout the season. I think he got replaced in the AC Championship game for Cade Klubnik. So do you think they got that position answered with recruiting, or do you think Klubnik is going to probably be the presumptive starter for next year?
Klubnik is the starter as far as I'm concerned. And it's interesting with Christopher Vizina coming in because he feels fairly ready as a quarterback. He's over Briarwood Christian, Alabama, somebody that could come in and you say, okay, you know, similar feeling to what a lot of people had about Cade Klubnik of if you needed him to go, he could probably figure it out. He's got a high maturity level. He's able to do it with his arm. Someone that you might feel comfortable later in the season, even opening up the playbook to him a little more. But I would say Klubnik is the starter at quarterback. I'm not very concerned about that going forward. The bowl game, I think, will tell us a lot of, you know, what do you do against Tennessee? It's not exactly a vaunted defense at Tennessee, so we'll see how that goes for Cade. But, yeah, there were plenty of times earlier in the season where we'd be in the press box and, you know, we had that bird's eye view and we're saying, hey, that wasn't a good play from DJ, but really wasn't anybody open. And then, you know, maybe you have a guy trying to force the ball or try to make a play and it's not there. And there were some situations where the separation was just not there. So that's why there's plenty of argument from Clemson fans that it wasn't all DJ's fault. Sure, it would have, you know, needed a better season from him to make the playoff, but there was plenty more that needed work in that offense.
Yeah, I just want to say one more time, I really do like all those DBs we talked about. That's huge. When you look at grading this overall class, there's going to be such competition there in depth the next few years. But you pointed out that the thing that you felt they haven't been doing is the receiver. And the way I look at it, you don't need to get a guy that's going to be in the Heisman conversation. You need a guy that can stretch the field and create the deep ball. Whether you guys go to it, doesn't matter. You need a deep threat. You need the guys that are the possession receivers. You need a gadget receiver, a guy that can run a quick kind of drop-off pass where as soon as it touches his hands, he's just explosive. If you have those different things, rather than just focusing on recruiting the next all-nation, all-American guy, it's like you have to have that versatility at the receiver position. And so that is going to be a key, but that's how you keep the offense moving at this time.
Definitely. And real quick, obviously me and Craig are going to talk about it a little bit more, but what do you think about Travis Hunter, top Georgia recruit for 2022 class, entering the transfer portal? He named his top 4, Georgia, Colorado, Miami, and then USC. Where do you think he lands? And before you answer, I think the best landing spot, again, I think is Georgia for him because, again, he'll play against that top-tier talent. He's going to get better. You played there, Craig. Iron sharpens iron. And even if he does not play the first year, he's only going to get better. And I think it's his best bet if he wants to go to the next level. I'm not saying that he can. He definitely will. But like if he wants to be a sure lock for even a top whatever pick, he could be top 3, top 5 pick. I think that's his best landing spot.
Yeah, I'll let Luke answer. But I think personally, Travis Hunter misses the state of Georgia. I'm just going to say.
Well, hey, we wouldn't mind that. Of course, you know, we'd welcome Travis Hunter home anytime. But the thing to me, I think playing with Dion at Colorado should have the opportunity to go both ways. I think it's a lot harder for an NFL scout to knock his competition level when it's Pac-12, of course, compared to HBCU. Nothing against HBCU, but the Power 5 look is something that NFL scouts are used to drafting from. So I think that could be interesting. I think Colorado's got this new feel around it, becoming a destination program, becoming a Dion can model however he wants program, because at 1-11 he can change a lot. So I would still say the leader if I were betting my money. I would say Colorado, but I think Georgia's intriguing. I think the reporting that Chad Simmons is doing is intriguing. I think the fact that it's taking more than 24 hours of him being in the portal to announce any kind of graphic or decision of where he's going is also intriguing. I'm just not sold yet because of that Deion Sanders connection. But I will say the intriguing things are, being from Georgia, having the number one player stay in state, having that kind of thing return. That would be really cool for the culture and the area that we cover. So I, of course, am intrigued by all that.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely am. And I feel like, too, at the end of the day, obviously he loves Deion. He went to Jackson State for a reason. His dream school was really Florida State. I remember interviewing him. But I feel like sometimes, man, as a player, sometimes you got to do what's best for you. I feel like, no offense to Deion, he made the best decision. He thought for his career. He kind of, got elevated. He said either you get elevated or you get fired. I think he said pretty much, kind of trying to sum up what he said. But I mean, if I'm Travis, obviously play with Deion. That's super cool. You already play with him. You know what he's about. You should try to look out for your best interest, but at the same time, like, play for Georgia, Kirby Smart, that program they're building and all the recruits they have, it's just absurd. But I think playing for SEC, I mean, that would just be a different level.
Yeah, I would not be shocked at all if he ends up going to Georgia because, I mean, think about his situation his freshman year. He was supposed to go to Florida State. He follows Deion there. Deion ends up leaving. Does he really want to pack up and go to Colorado? He might just say, you know what? When I was in Georgia, I was the number one player. I love playing there. Everyone was supportive of me. And if I go to Georgia, I'm going to get a chance to play there. I mean, he'll get a chance wherever he goes. I would not be surprised if he just doesn't want to go all the way out there, wants to stay close to his roots, his family. And that would be one of just the wildest recruiting kind of sagas I've seen.
For sure. And before we let you go, Luke, we got one more question for you, man. Let's preview this bowl matchup. Clemson, Tennessee. What are you thinking about that? How they match up in that game? And then what are your quick thoughts on kind of it being expanding now with the Rose Bowl kind of coming to an agreement recently? And now this will be the last year coming up of basically the 14 playoff. It'll expand in 2024, 2025 to 12 teams. What do you think about the 12-team playoff? And then what do you think about the chances of Clemson beating Tennessee?
Yeah, okay. So 12-team playoff, I think it's a back and forth topic. I think, you look at the pros and cons of it, of the regular season becomes not worth as much and those kind of obvious things. I would say for me, the thing that I do like about a 12-team playoff, and the reason that right now I will somewhat hesitantly say that I'm for it, is that you get these matchups that you don't usually see. So think about, Tennessee versus TCU in a playoff game, or these kinds of things like, Michigan versus Clemson. You don't see a lot of that. And I do like the idea of having teams out west play teams from the south and teams up north play teams from the south. And these kinds of things of, hey, that's a cool matchup. Like, how often do you get to see maybe Ohio State play USC, for example? Those kinds of matchups that could maybe happen depending on seeding in the future. So because of that, because of the extended season, I will say I do like it. I would love to see some of those, Clemson-Oregon matchup, for example, would be cool. So I look at that, and that's what I like is the different region stuff. We don't just see it now in a kickoff game or a bowl game. We'll see it in a high-stakes playoff environment, which – instead of having these bowl games that don't mean as much between teams from different areas, you now get the teams from different areas in a playoff and you get more of that. So it's maybe a little more meaningful. That's my way of rationalizing it because we have to live with it no matter what. I know some people that I really respect in college football, like Josh Pate, are very outspoken against it. But for now, I hesitantly say I like that idea of it being such a high stakes win or go home between the teams from different regions. So, and we get some of that anyways, but we'll get more of it now. So I like that side of it. And then Clemson, Tennessee in the Orange Bowl. I love the matchup. I think it's really cool to have an all Orange Bowl between it was weird. People were talking about
It's
it. It was
true.
speculation, and then it happened. I was
Says
like,
the Bengals fan.
there you go. See, and I like the idea of it because Tennessee's got this high-powered offense, and of course they have some opt-outs and Hooker's injured, but regardless, I like the matchup because of the different styles of football. You're seeing Clemson, a team with a great front seven, go up against a great passing team. How does that matchup go down? Then Clemson offensively, what are we going to get? Even Tennessee offensively, what are we going to get from that group? There's some question marks. There's opportunity for not just young players, but young players that people have heard of to step up on both sides, especially Cade Klubnik on the Clemson side has a shot to step up. So those kinds of opportunities to see it. It's one of the, outside of the college football playoff, one of the closest games, I would say, in terms of expectations going in. Could be a bit of a toss-up. I would pick Clemson, but a lot of that's because of the opt-outs in the Tennessee side.
Yeah, it'd be a huge win. I mean, Tennessee was ranked number 1 at one point this season. They've obviously had the downfall, but then Clemson, they've had some rough stretches this season. So I think there's a lot to gain from it just heading into the future. So you've been around kind of the Clemson conversation this season. What has the kind of overall sentiment been about the state of the program?
Yeah, it's interesting because when you win an ACC championship 39-10, you blow out Drake May, all of a sudden a lot of the doubt and a lot of the negative feelings that came from the South Carolina loss are starting to get washed away because of the hope for the future. So Cade Klubnik comes in, has a great game, really shreds the UNC defense. Drake May scores early, but then after Clemson makes the quarterback change, the offense gets going, defense gets going, and UNC didn't have another touchdown. So because of that forward momentum, it's a type of season that wasn't what Clemson fans and people around the program had wanted because of the high expectations there. But it was one that they say, okay, got the ACC championship by a wide margin. It feels a lot better in terms of the vibe around the program because of the hope behind Klubnik, not just for him to play well, but to elevate the players around him, to make the receivers better, to take pressure off the running backs, and to be able to set that offense up because the defense could be a defense on a nationally contending team, national championship contender. That is pretty solidly in place this season, and they'll lose a number of pieces, but next year I don't expect that to be too different. So the hope behind Klubnik is really fueling a lot of the decent to good mood around the Clemson program now.
And then one last one, man. Tell us, what do you think about the tight end position this year for Clemson and kind of, with some of the prospects coming in? Do you think that can be a position potentially next year for Clay Klubnik that could be, just beneficial, somebody you can rely on? They try to take away the deep ball.
Yeah, I would say this year I don't think they were used enough, the tight ends. You've got, for example, we talk about tight end recruiting. The tight ends in Georgia are awesome, especially 24,
Yes.
25, maybe even 26 class. It's some of the early guys we look at. It's a really good group. And I talked to some of them that have been on visits to Clemson, and there were a couple of them that got lucky, and the tight ends were used a lot on the day they saw. But there were plenty of days later in the season where if I'm a recruited tight end and I go to Clemson, I say, if I'm a pass catcher, I don't know. We had the game against South Carolina, we saw Clemson throw to a tight end, I think, for one completion that was under 10 yards, and that was it there. And that was a big recruiting day. So those kinds of things of later in the season, not good enough. Davis Allen from Calhoun, Georgia, finished under 400 yards receiving on the season. He's a really, really dynamic player. He'll go to the NFL, but I think he should have been utilized more. So tight ends for Clemson, they had some good guys. Allen will move on. He'll go play in the Senior Bowl and go eventually to the NFL. But tight end Jake Birmingstool, for example, is one that can step up next year. There's a couple coming in recruiting. There's also Kyle Richardson, who has coached in Georgia, I believe at North Gwinnett High School. That is recruiting in-state for tight end and in Georgia for tight ends, especially in the class of 24. You looked at guys like Caleb Odom over at Carrollton this year. So That kind of thing. I don't know if it's in the cards for Clemson to use the tight ends more. I think it would be a good security blanket for Klubnik, so I could see it happening. He did throw a tight end to Davis Allen in the ACC championship game. But it's something that Clemson can definitely do more, and I think with Klubnik really should use more, especially passing and establishing over the middle of the field with a young quarterback.
For sure. You have any other questions for him?
No, everyone follow Luke, though, and I know you're going to be – what are you doing tomorrow, though, for signing day? That's a good question.
That is a good question.
Lock myself in my room and then just write until I can't move my hands anymore, right? I was thinking about going up to Clemson. They've got a press conference with Coach Sweeney up there that's specifically for signing day, but I've decided I think I'd be more valuable to our company if I just got some feature articles and did the press conference over on Zoom. So I think I'll be taking care of business in that way tomorrow, and a lot of not just trying to show people, hey, these are guys that are coming to Clemson, but trying to help everybody understand here's who could play early and why. Here's why their skill set might help them play early. Here's why positional moves like Miles Murphy declaring for the NFL draft could open up a spot for a guy like Peter Woods to come in and play very early, which he probably will regardless. So those kinds of things of really explaining what we see and really what it means for Clemson.
For sure. But, man, Luke is the man. Y'all make sure y'all follow him on Twitter at Luke Winstel. I think he has his own show, too. Follow him on Instagram. I mean, if you really want to be updated on all the news going on in Georgia, Clemson, all the major happenings in college, definitely follow him. He does a great job, man. And we are pleased, man, to have you on the show today, man. We definitely got to have you on again.
7 days a week. He's always breaking it.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all having me on.
You bet, man.
You bet, man. Thanks again.
For sure.
All right, guys. That was Luke. Oh, man, that was super fun.
I have a question, though. I messed something up. Who was he talking about on that recruiting class that starts with a T? Because I confused it with the Tellender in the incoming Clemson class.
Oh,
I forgot who it was.
I don't remember.
Because I said he's going to play first year on special teams. No, that's the Tellender from Gainesville going to Tennessee. So I got that confused.
Oh, that's what that was. Yep. I think I confused you because I brought up Tellender.
Maybe.
Yeah, that was me. Yeah, that was me. My bad, guys.
It's
Yeah, that was,
orange.
yeah, it's the orange. Yeah, that was me. It was some big recruit, though, that you talked about that was going to Clemson, though. But you're right. Tellender's going to Tennessee.
But
It was a big one you mentioned that's going actually to Clemson.
We need to look. We'll look it up.
Yeah, we got to definitely look that part up. But, yeah, guys, that's what we got far as our college news, man, major bowl games. I think the best one definitely is going to be the Clemson-Tennessee one outside of the top four that are going to play. I think that'll be really good. So, man, we're going to take just a quick short break, man, and then we're going to break down some NFL news, as you guys all know. Appreciate everybody tuning in. And then, yes, we'll reveal – we said Samarian Parker. Appreciate that, Luke. Definitely with the save. But, yeah, give us just a couple moments. We're definitely going to transition to NFL and kind of wrap up. 1 second, guys.
Yeah, and I think what Bruce pointed out with Mickey Khan and Grayson, there is just such a huge connection of pipeline there. So, when the Cubs will be looking at is, once Adam Carter goes, who's going to fill that Grayson role, and then does any of that pipeline go down to Lowndes? I mean, who knows? But Grayson has been huge for Clemson, and it is important for them in this upcoming game against Tennessee, another team that likes to really recruit hard in Georgia. So it'll be a big one. I think we talked about it. What are the biggest bowl games outside of the playoffs? That one was definitely our favorite.
For sure. And, yeah, I'm just thinking about it. I'm thinking about what happens with Jeff Davis next year. Thinking about Kylan Fox, top recruit, tight end in position. Tyler Atkinson is young. I think he has over probably 25, 30-plus offers as a freshman. What happens with him? JoJo Stone's obviously not there no more, but so much superior talent he got coming in, and now he's leaving. So it's interesting to see.
Do you think the person that takes that job might be someone that had a really good season at a smaller school? They might jump on that one.
I could see it. I mean, so I'm obviously still new to it. The previous coaches for Grayson, right, were they kind of lower classification coaches? Like, how did they get Carter?
Honeycutt was there before. and then Carter came in. He was, I think, their coordinator for a season or two.
Okay.
I need to look that up.
But it's usually closest from the higher classifications, usually, right?
Yeah.
Like 5A,
Or
6A.
you get like a big out of state. Like
I could see them.
Job where it'd be like if Gainesville wasn't open last year, it's like Josh Niblett might come over to take this Grace job. I think you're either going to get someone that's just been on the rise in these 6A, 5A schools where he's proven himself, he has a good system, or you're going to get someone from out of state, a big name. But that is a really big job to open up at this point.
Yeah.
And that coaching carousel will definitely get a boost with that opening.
For sure. For sure. I can't wait to see what they get. But let's go ahead and go to my favorite section, NFL. So much happened this past weekend. I mean, oh, my goodness. I mean, you want to talk about some shocking wins and some shocking losses? Let's start with the Colts and the Vikings. They played exceptionally well in the first half. They were up 33-0. Almost, what was it? Going into the third quarter. I would say I was more disappointed with their loss more than I was impressed with the Vikings victory. I just feel like they blew it. I feel like they did the same thing against the Cowboys. They got blitzed in the fourth quarter, 33-0, and they just opened up a can of you-know-what against them. But I just feel like it's like, dang, I was almost cheering for Just Saturday to kind of, do well. But it's like they cannot hold leads. This is the second time for Matt Ryan that he's blown 2 historic leads, one in the Super Bowl, one now in the regular season. And I feel like just the fashion they lost was just incredible. Now Jonathan Taylor's out for the rest of the season with his ankle injury. So I think they just need to hit a big reset this offseason. I mean, they need a big reset. They need to just figure out what direction do they want to go in. I feel like they got to stop doing the veteran quarterbacks. Like, that's not going to work. They got to look at themselves in the mirror and say, hey, we're going to rebuild. We're going to use this offensive line we have. We're going to get it better. We're going to go get our future franchise quarterback because this is the draft to do it. Even if you got to trade some assets, some picks. I mean, you obviously got Stephon Gilmore, but you might have to leverage an asset in order to go get your guy at the QB position and just build around him. I mean, Michael Pittman's still young. You got a great Jelani Woods who can perform really good. They'll break out tight end for them. So they have a couple pieces in place, but you might have to take an asset and trade him away. They didn't have Darius Leonard all year, so they're gonna have to do something to fix it because it just does not look good. But I was more disappointed with their loss. I mean, obviously the Vikings played well. They came back, but there's no way in hell they should have been down 33-0 in that game against the Colts.
Yeah, well, they have those 2 touchdowns back on the returns. But here's a question. The Colts, they don't have too many salary cap issues. They don't have like one guy that they're kind of just in the hole with. So I feel like they can make a lot of moves this offseason, but you have to ask what is happening. The fourth quarter against the Cowboys was disastrous.
Yeah.
And then to blow this one, they aren't good on fourth downs, and we're still trying to be aggressive. Matt Ryan has not been good in that department this season and, in my opinion, for his entire career. And so the way they blew that game, it's like Minnesota, they've had a big comeback against Buffalo. That one was honestly almost equally incredible. This one was a larger deficit, the biggest ever. But I still thought that Buffalo comeback was tremendous. This one was more gradual, and things just fell apart for the Colts. And Justin Jeffries is a beast.
Yeah, I mean, he is. Justin Jefferson is a dog. No, all good. I mean, yeah, that guy's just the next level, dude. I mean, hopefully, man, I know this year they'll definitely make the playoffs. That's already kind of clinched and done for them. But I'm hoping they can go far because his talent, I mean, you don't see that too often, just talent at the receiver position. And like I said, if you're Philly, I mean, 2 of the turnovers for Cousins, if you go look, the guy they drafted before Jefferson, Rager, who they traded away to Vikings, he stops in the middle. Or no. He's supposed to stop on the route. He goes more to the right. It's an interception for Kirk Cousins. Then the other one, he throws it, and essentially, basically, he stops running. I mean, that was just a terrible pick. I mean, I just don't I'm not trying to, come on here and bash him, but I mean, like, just look at the college tape. Like, that, to me, that matters. I feel like NFL, like, obviously, like, right now, a good guy's getting a lot of praise right now as Will Levis is coming in. But I feel like your competition, he's from SEC, your competition matters. Like, Justin Jefferson did it on the highest stage repeatedly, And you go get a guy from TCU. This year they're good. They're in the running. But you go look a couple years ago, that wasn't a good team. So, I mean, obviously that doesn't pale for you getting talent, but you want to see a receiver that's tearing it up, doing good against this competition. That matters at the end of the day. And I feel like for them to make that draft pick over Jefferson, who balled all year long with Joe Burrow and won the big game after big game, beating Georgia, I think, in the SEC championship game, beating Alabama that year on the road against Tua Tagovailoa, all the weapons they had, winning the national championship game against Clemson. That matters.
So true. And then what was I going to say about – oh, yeah, Patrick Peterson in the locker room at halftime was like, hey, offense, we got you. Just score 5 touchdowns and we'll win the game. It's like, how did the Colts not do anything in the second half? I mean, it is professional football. You got to put up some points. So I think you're right. It is more on the Colts than the Vikings, but still, they've had 2 big comebacks now this season, and they're in the history books for that one. So congratulations to them. But, yeah, that's just a bad back-to-back stretch for the Colts and the way they're closing out games.
And the mind-boggling part was the Vikings still turned over the ball in the second half, and they still had 2 punts. So
it was just a gradual. It's like this.
Yeah, it wasn't even like, okay, but just bombshell after bombshell after bombshell. No, it was just methodically almost in a sense. Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. But let's talk about another head-scratching play. The Patriots. I seen his interview. I mean, it looked like he just made an honest mistake. But, I mean, man, it's a tie game. You come back. Raiders blow another lead, per usual. They were up like 17-3. They come back. Ramondre Stevenson gets the touchdown. They go up. The Raiders answer them. I just don't understand for the life of me, 24-24. We always rave about Bill Belichick and the situational awareness and how well coached of a team he is. I just don't understand why he would throw it back all the way for Mac Jones. I know you said in the interview he's trying to make a play on the ball, but I'm not going to throw it all the way back. It's different if it was Tyreek Hill back there or something, or if it was or as a Cordell Patterson. This is Mac Jones. Just go down. I didn't understand that. Just go down.
I mean, what did they already gain? Probably 25, 30 yards on the play.
Yeah.
He's got plenty of teammates around him. So you said you've listened to some of the interviews. How does he justify throwing it back 30 yards across the field in that situation? I've never seen someone do that, especially later on into the hook and ladder situation. It's like maybe that's like your first move. You're trying to set something up. But once everything's collapsed, there's guys all around. You're just gonna throw it up like that. It was head scratching. No one had ever seen anyone do that. It was a horrible mistake, and I just don't understand where that came from. Because you either practice that, which you wouldn't, because once you get past the line of scrimmage, you go back to your quarterback. He can't pass the ball again. So there was no point. That's why we've never seen it before. So what did he say about the decision? Just he was trying to make a play?
That's what he said. He said he was just trying to make a play. He said it's all on me, But what I've heard from reports is that, he's not really – he's really a well-sound player. He's a guy that, obviously takes it seriously, very attention to detail guy. And he said he's a guy that comes in and does what he's supposed to do. And they said it was really uncharacteristic from what I heard from reports. So, I don't know. I guess he was just trying to, I don't know, make a play. I just don't understand why you would throw it all the way across your body back just to open that up. That just didn't make sense to me. At that point, if it was Matt Crosby around him as another defender, I would have just went down. I don't understand it.
Yeah, there were other guys closer to him too. It's like he could have gone back 5 yards to another teammate. Yep. He decides to go all the way back to the middle of the field. It just made zero sense.
Yeah, it did. It was head scratching, and now the Patriots find themselves in the.
Even if it's an incomplete pass, the other team can pick it up and run it in. It's that was insane, and so he definitely won't do that again. But yeah, my goodness.
Yeah, no, that was definitely tough. But let's talk about the big win for you guys. You guys are keeping pace right now with the Bills. You guys are 11-3 right now. Especially after Hurts injury, it looks like Mahomes is kind of the favorite now to win. What do you think about that performance against the Texans in the game? They've been playing teams hard. So, I mean, they played the Cowboys tough towards the end, had a chance to win. Played you guys really tough. It's a team that Lovie Smith has playing really hard right now. So, what do you think about that victory and you guys pulling out at the end?
I thought Jerick McKinnon had a great game. He really came up with clutch plays. And I thought the coolest stat from it was that was the first time Mahomes has ever won in Texas in the NFL. I thought that was crazy.
Wow.
He had never
He
played.
went to Texas Tech.
Exactly. So he had
Wow.
never played at Dallas or at Houston, gotten a win. So
Interesting.
it was a big one for him. And I mean, 7th year in a row they won the division.
It's impressive.
You can't really knock them for that. But yeah, it was concerning to see them have to dig themselves out of a hole, go to overtime, and then the biggest takeaway is exactly what you told me. I think we have a kicking problem with Harrison Butker.
Yes.
Seems like nearly every game this season he's either missed an extra point or a field goal, and he still has the leg strength, but he's just been off. He has not been on target this year, so that's really concerning.
Yeah, especially ever since he got that injury, he's kind of been a little head scratching for him. But hopefully, man, he figures it out. I mean, at least the good thing is the Chiefs are sticking with him. You see a lot of teams when their kicker starts to struggle, they just get rid of him. We see Mason Crosby, a great kicker, go through struggles. We've seen Dutch Tucker miss one. So hopefully, it gets it together, before that postseason run, kind of for you guys.
Oh, for sure. But he has been shaky this year.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's been one of the things about him these past few seasons. It's like he's been so reliable. The fans are accustomed to it. The teammates are. But now it's like you can tell when he goes out there, there's a sense that, okay, this is a toss-up. We don't know anymore. And then more times than not in these situations, he's been missing. So that's, I think, the biggest thing moving forward. You've got to have solid kicking to win these tight games because the Chiefs aren't necessarily blowing people out. They've been playing that 4-quarter style all season long. That kind of game management, the different designs, they have to have him kicking better.
For sure. I definitely agree. But nonetheless, they're good, keeping pace. And you guys, I think, got the Seahawks coming up, so that'll be a good game. Interesting to see how you guys pull out. And I think, trying to remember who the Bills play. But they got a couple big games coming up as well. I can't think who they play off the top of my head, but
there was a good one. But yeah, my family's going to be at the game, so hopefully we love you, Harrison. Get back on track, and they'll be cheering for you. Hope you'll go 3 for 3.
Yep. All right, now it's time to talk about my Bengals and their victory against the Bucks. I will say this: they got absolutely shredded defensively in the first half. Brady looked like New England Brady. It looked like the GOAT. He was doing exceptionally well throwing the ball. I thought their motion offense was great in the first half. They really confused our linebackers, but I thought they played both sides of the ball. Great. They didn't allow us to get anything going with our kind of explosive offense, and they really shut us down. And I think kind of what it comes down to for us is, I think Lou Anarumo is definitely going to be probably a head coaching candidate probably next season. He just does a great job with in-game coaching adjustments. Like, you see it almost every game. Like, going even from last year, I remember replaying you guys, the Chiefs, and you guys absolutely shredded us offensively. Then we come out with a second half game plan, and then we're able to kind of, Mahomes plays well all the time, but we was able to kind of stifle Mahomes a little bit where he wasn't as on target with his throws. So that's kind of what happened here. I mean, it was 17-3. They got some momentum going, and the defense just balled. I know everybody's going to say, oh, Brady looks like a shell of himself. But at the end of the day, the only really turnover was that play we tried to hand it off to Fournette, and he fumbled it. The other ones I thought were just great plays on the ball. One, just Joseph Ossai hits Brady, and it kind of sputters in the air, and then Jermaine Pratt just makes an incredible play on the ball to get it without it touching the ground. I thought that play was incredible. I thought the Trey Flowers play, making a play on the ball, was good. Great exceptional play. And the other play, Brady is going down. DJ Reader just comes in there and just swipes right for the ball, and then makes the fumble. So I thought, obviously everybody's gonna talk about Brady not playing well, which obviously that's what happened. But at the same time, the defense stepped up, and I don't think the Bengals defense gets enough credit for how well they play, how complementary they play all the time. And I think that's the difference with our team is that we can win in all facets of it. And special teams was huge, giving us a momentum, a spark. We did I think it was a 3-and-out for them, and then they go and try the fake punt up 17-3, and we able to get the turnover on downs, and then we go down and score the 6. But defense played incredible, put all of their plays basically from the third all the way to midway through the fourth quarter in Tampa Bay territory. I thought they took advantage of that. So I do want to shout out that. But like I said, our downfall is going to be the coaching. It is offensively. It's going to be the freaking play calling. It's going to be what they design. because they just do too many things. I feel like they try to be like the Chiefs too much. In some instances, why are we throwing a shovel pass? It doesn't look fluid as the Chiefs would do it. You guys usually use Travis Kelce to do it. I just don't like the play call. We pass the ball too much. The first half, you know, we only had 3 points. We had three. Get this, Craig. Our defense was on the field for over 20 plus minutes. We had three. What was it? The first first 5 possessions. We had 4 3-and-outs. You're not doing your defense any kind of favors. None. They're staying on the field. You're going 3 straight passes. You don't even try to run the ball, and then you have sites that come out and say, "Oh, well, the running game needs to be more effective." Yeah, but how can it be effective when Joe Mixon again has only 5 carries going into the fourth quarter? You're not even trying to run. And I know we love the quick passing game. That's good, but again, try to run the football. And then what was making me upset, Craig, is that they kept running to the edge. They have good edge rushers. They have good linebackers that can go sideline to sideline. Run the ball in between the tackles up the middle. You don't do Burrow no favors. He took 2 sacks early. It was making me upset. Like, just run the football, lean on Mixon, lean on Piron, let it set up your play action pass. And then for the life of me, Craig, we stood in the same formation the whole first half. We didn't start going into under the gun until the freaking third, fourth quarter. You have to be able to switch it up. Obviously, we know shotgun passing, shotgun running is good. Switch up the formations, lean on your offensive line a little bit more, run the football. I've been saying it all season. I sound like a freaking broken record, but that is going to be our demise. They play great. Shout out to Burrow, 4 touchdowns, 200 yards. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins all played well. But the game ball goes to the defense and the special teams. Without them, we wouldn't have been in that game. So, again, one of our shortcomings is going to be the offensive play calling. We throw the ball too darn much. 39 passes, Craig, to freaking 17 runs.
Yeah, all those passes, and you guys didn't even have the ball much at all in the first half.
No.
That was probably the fewest rushing yards you had all season.
Yeah.
Would you say, yeah?
Yeah.
But still, I mean, you get the win. Defense is playing well.
Yep.
Your second half team, that's a good sign. And then, as you said, special teams. But I still, part of me thinks that they're saving the running game. They're just saving it in their back pocket for the playoffs. I think, is that a hopeful look?
That's definitely hopeful. I mean, I'm hoping they do that. But
early in the year, they were going off. And look how many yards the Chiefs put on the ground last week. They close to 200 rushing yards.
That's what I'm saying.
I think that something wasn't there. Who knows? But there's no excuse to rack up maybe 60 yards on the ground.
No.
They had no success. But as you said, they didn't even try.
No, you didn't try. I mean, obviously, it didn't go best. I think Piron might have had 3.3 yards per carry, Mixon 1.9. But then you want to come for the running backs like they did terrible. No, there weren't really any holes, and then you didn't do it enough. I'm going to say this really quick, and then we'll transition. All Tampa Bay was doing, go look at how Tampa Bay played in the first half. They were running the football. They were building play action. They were hitting their deep shots down the field. They had the defense of the Bengals on the heels because they established a running game. So then you go down 17-0. Now you have to pass the ball. But then the defense knows what you're doing. They're going to tee off, and they're going to bring pressure. They're going to load up the box and blitz your quarterback. So you take it off of Burrow not to have to do so much if you establish a run early in the game, even if it's only getting 1 or 2 yards. Just try to be creative with it, calling good runs, getting mixing in between the tackles, things like that. It just makes a difference. Everybody says I'm a critical fan. I'm not a critical fan. I'm looking at the whole picture objectively of what we need to do if we want to get back to where we want to be at. This is what you have to do. And just passing the ball and relying on solely Burrow is not going to help. Not saying he can't do it. He can. But again, this is your franchise quarterback. He's already in that conversation with some of the best in the game right now. Mahomes, Allen, Burrow's in that combo now. You got the guy. So what I'm saying is I want to keep the guy healthy. You keep him healthy by building off play action, running the ball. That's it.
Yep, you got to have those body blows too. You can't
That's
just
it.
go for the knockout punch, or you can't just – he's sitting up there, they're guarding the pass the entire time. Who cares you get 2 yards? Punish the defense, run it downhill. Trust me, they don't want to have to be tackling or responding after taking big carries up the middle. That wears down the defense.
Exactly. We'll leave it there, guys. 2 more topics for today. Dolphins, as I mentioned a few weeks ago, they're now on a 3-game losing streak. They did play really well in that game, so I will say that. But they're now 8-6. They are the 7th seed currently right now because they did lose to the Chargers. But I do want to shout out Tua. He played pretty good in that game. 17 for 30, 234 yards, 2 touchdowns. Waddle, 3 catches, 114 yards, a TD. Hill had 9 catches, 69 yards, and a touchdown. And then Mostert did really good on the ground game, 17 carries, 136, and a touchdown. So they played really well. I think they had an 8-point lead going into the fourth. But the Bills basically just blitzed them. Allen played another good game, 304 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. They won that fourth quarter 11-3. I thought that was critical. That was crucial for them. And the Dolphins played them tough. They just couldn't, get the stops towards the end, and then the Bills kicked the game when they field goal.
Yeah, you're talking about the Bills game?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really exciting. They're on fire. And, yeah, the Dolphins, they've not looked particularly well recently. We were wondering kind of, is Tua going to have that breakout season when he comes back? The play calling had been creative, but that's a tough 3-game stretch. I don't think the Dolphins are equipped to make a big run this year. I don't see it.
Interesting. So you don't think they'll make a good run this year?
No.
Interesting take. Yeah, I mean, they're 8-6 right now. The playoffs are obviously still in sight. I'm not sure their schedule, but we'll see what they have coming up pretty soon here. But yeah, I mean, I knew that schedule would tell a lot to me of like how good they were playing San Fran, playing the Bills, playing the Chargers, seeing how they would come out. But we'll see. It's not over yet. They can still make the playoffs. But they got some good games coming. I think they got to play the Jets up on their upcoming schedule as well. But
let's talk about the other Florida team, though, the Jaguars. Do they potentially catch the Titans?
I'll say this. So this Thursday, they actually going to play the they're going to play the Jets. First of all, it's incredible that they were down 27-10 and the Cowboys lost. I don't even understand that. I don't even know how that even happens. But everybody says too, like for me with Dallas, like I don't have a problem with Dallas. It's just like they have very cocky fans, and their players are the same way. They're a very talented bunch. Micah Parsons, Trayvon Diggs, Dalton Schultz, CeeDee Lamb. But I just feel like they don't have the guy at quarterback. I mean, they should have went in there and beat Jacksonville. But now Jacksonville, as you mentioned, they're 1 game behind Tennessee.
That's crazy.
They're going to play Tennessee again.
Tennessee's lost 4 straight.
They've lost 4 straight. They're going to play Tennessee again, and then Tennessee has another tough game, I think, coming up. So it's not out of the realm of possibility, in my opinion, for them to actually make the postseason. And so I think the Jazz got the Jets. Let me actually look up their schedule. I want to make sure I get it right, guys. Hold on, because I don't think this is. I can see them finishing 9-8. Okay, yes. Look at the schedule. Okay, they have the Jets, guys. Then they have the Texans. Then they have the Titans. That's a winnable. Like this is a must-win game almost for the Jets. If the Jaguars win, they actually clinch our playoff spot for the Bengals, so which is interesting. So interesting there. But they'll be 7-8. Then they play the 1st of January against the Texans on the road. That's kind of a sleeper game. But then you're playing almost for the division. This might be a Sunday night game, Titans and Jaguars potentially. So I mean, can they do it? Trevor Lawrence is playing like a top 5 quarterback right now. I mean, he's been having a great stretch of runs. I think they had a stretch in the season that lost like 5 or 6 straight games, but he's been playing incredible. You can't sleep on them. They got talent. They got Christian Kirk. They got Marvin Jones who's playing exceptionally well. Travis Etienne. That defense is making plays, making turnovers when they need it most. What do you think?
Yeah, that game was incredible. The way they fought back as a team got the overtime win. It was massive.
Yeah.
That saved their season and put them in position to potentially close it out with the division title. So to be down like they were early in the year and then to put together this stretch just shows like they have not given up, and it has been the key turnovers, the big plays, and the big situations, and that was a huge win and another tough loss for Dallas.
Yeah, man. They should have lost to the Texans. Dallas should have. They were able to pull that out. But I don't know what it is with them. I feel like it just gets to this point of the year, every single year, and they don't perform. I don't know what it is. It's just like they'll have all this talent like they did last year, had a superior talented team. Same thing this year. And then they just get to the postseason and get around this December, January time, and they just don't play the same. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, we'll see. You think it's Dak Prescott? I don't know.
I think he's part of the problem. I mean, I think he's part of the problem. I think Mike McCarthy is not good situationally. But I just feel like Dak's not that guy. I told Graham, our GM, I don't think he's that guy. I mean, he looked at me crazy, but I think he's starting to believe I was right. I mean, I just feel like the past 2 games, no, Jerry said, I think he's played well. He's had, since I think week 7, 10 interceptions. 10. You know, that game he throws a pick six. That wasn't really his fault, the pick six, because, I mean, it hit the receiver's hands. But let me ask you this, Craig. Do you think Dak is a guy that can take you there? Oh, I think he has one playoff win in his whole career. Do you think he's the guy that can take you there? You need a drive. Everyone was like, oh, Dak didn't get the recognition for the 98 drive against Houston to go win the game. Okay, let's say we give him recognition. Do you think he's that guy? You're in the playoffs. You're playing an upper echelon team against San Francisco on the road. You need a drive, 85 yards. You're down 20-17. You need him to take you there to the Super Bowl. Do you believe he could do it? Because I don't.
I would not be that confident. I think the
No.
98-yard drive, that's just a 98-yard drive. The clock wasn't necessarily really pressed up on him. You're talking about an 85-yard drive with 2 minutes left and
High
2
pressure.
timeouts.
Yes.
We haven't seen him do it. We just haven't seen it.
I don't believe
Until
he could.
He has that big game where we're like, wow, that was clutch, where you say he's that guy. What does that mean? That means they're at the center of the eye of the hurricane.
Yep.
In that moment. You can tell they're going to lead them to the victory. They make all the key plays. And then once the game's over, you're like, wow, that quarterback just won them that game. We haven't seen that. We've seen them miss it on these 4th downs, just come up short, turn it over, lose in overtime consistently. So until he has that big drive where the game's on the line, he just comes out and makes that dime pass where it's just like, okay, that was clutch. That was it. That's what we've been waiting for. That's what we need to see with him. And I feel like it would kind of help them in the situation because it is iffy. And I know a lot of the fans aren't even that confident when they come down the stretch and they've been in this situation. They've had a lot of games slip through their fingers.
And if everybody's asking, what are we talking about? We're talking about, as Craig alluded to, that signature moment, that clutch moment where you come through for your team. That is what we're talking about. We've yet to see that. I mean, somebody, please, anybody that's watching this right now, please send me a clip where you see him coming up clutch in the biggest moments of his career or when his team needed most. I've yet to see it. Any of the major top quarterbacks that you listen to the league right now have done that.
Be like Mahomes. What was that game where he had that huge 4th down run?
That was early this year.
The Titans game, maybe?
That might have been the Titans game. Yes.
Yeah, where it's just like, okay, that wasn't drawn up that way, but he has such a will to win. He just made it happen. It's like that's what you need to see.
Exactly. We've been there for Allen. We can go to the playoffs when they played the Chiefs. Time in, time out. Like Mahomes just won the game, but Allen kept coming and kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. So, like, that was his moment. For Burrow, literally, go to the playoffs against Tennessee. You know, our defense gets a stop. He puts us in field goal range to kick the game-winning field goal against Tennessee. We needed most to go to the AFC Championship game. He's down 21-3 to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, makes the throws he needs to make in order to come back, seal the victory for the game. Those are the moments we're talking about when you kind of separate yourself and you're in the elite tier of quarterbacks. We have not seen that from Dak. So that's why I have my stance that I have on him. But let's talk about another quarterback that's having an MVP-type season, Jalen Hurts. I want to talk about his overusage. This season, he has 7 games, Craig. I don't know if you knew this. He has 7 games of over 10-plus carries this year. In the recent game, he had 17 carries, I think, for 58 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's 44 carries away from 200 carries for the whole entire season. That sounds like a feature back to me. And Miles Sanders only had 11 carries in the game in a win against Chicago. So, if we're being honest, his injury is on the coaching staff. That's on Nick Sirianni. That's on Steichen. Why is Hurts running the ball that much when you got a good running tandem in Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, and Kenneth Gainwell? I don't understand it. And I found out they only had 1 rushing attempt, I think, at halftime. What are they doing?
I know last week I said, yeah, but look at his 12 rushing touchdowns
Right.
this season. Some people are going to say he's carrying it too much, but look at the results. But obviously that's the conversation right there. You're right. You're in this key stretch. Your team's has the most wins in the NFL. You're trying to make a big run. It's like, hey, why not limit those carries a little bit? It's like if these are design runs, that is on the coaches.
Yeah, they were. I think they would do there was 5 design runs, but I'm like, They have our problem. Like they're gonna do shotgun, RPOs, Hurts, you decide we're gonna run it, pass it, or hand it off, which is fine. But then at the same time, like they have such a superior offensive line. Why you can't just get under the center, hike it, and then just do a regular handoff? I understand the RPO gives you a plethora of options where you can read the defender, see what you're gonna do. But at the same time, I'm gonna say this: if Philly gets the 1 seed, it's gonna be up to their coaching. If I'm Hurts, I'm not playing anymore. Maybe into the playoffs. I have a sprained shoulder. I'm not gonna risk it. He makes up for a lot of their woes, coaching wise, offensively. He runs it way too much. You have to have some kind of balance. It's the same thing with my Bengals. I swear, it's like almost a spitting image of each other. So we're gonna really see how good Philly coaching, especially going into this big game on the road against Dallas. You're not gonna have Hurts. You're gonna have to go with Gardner Minshew. So what kind of coaching game plan can they come up with? Because they lean way too much on Jalen Hurts, and it's gonna be interesting to see how they come out, how they're gonna play. But I think the coaching needs to be better when he comes back. He needs to run less. They need to incorporate more run. And obviously, we know he's a great downfield thrower of the football, but entirely too much on the kind of the shoulders of Hurts.
Yeah, it's a shame he got injured, and it's funny. I mean, they're at the top of the conference right now. If they end up falling a bunch later on, it's like that might even strengthen his case for MVP in reality. But I don't think it's going to go that route. I think this will potentially benefit Mahomes. But you're 100% right. What is Philadelphia going to do offensively when they've been so reliant on him taking nearly 200 carries, as you pointed out? That is a lot.
Yeah, 44 carries within 200.
Yeah, and then even 12 last game? I mean,
17 last game.
17.
He had more rushing, he had more carries than Miles Sanders, who had 11.
Yeah,
what are you doing?
Crazy.
Yeah, what are you doing? Come on, bro.
And what will think about from the coach, what is the down and distance situation? It's like there's so many different things you can do.
Yes.
That is tough.
Yes.
It's tough to ask that many times.
That's what I'm saying. So, it was cold.
What are they going to look like against Dallas? It's a huge division game.
You can lock up the division, and then you got a potential at a 1 seed if Minnesota loses.
Yeah.
It's a lot on the line.
Yeah, this will show us how good Philadelphia really is.
Yep.
And we know what Jalen can do. But
yeah. What can Philly do? And then I think it'll answer, too, as you just mentioned, how important he is to the team. And you saw Michael Parsons throw a shot. Oh, is it the team or is it Hurts?
Yes.
So now we get to answer that question, because now they're going to go up against them without Hurts. Then that's going to really answer that question. Is it Hurts, the team, or is it a little bit of both?
Yep, that would be really fun.
Yes, sir. But before we wrap, guys, I'm going to throw it to Craig. Craig, anything you want to talk about that we didn't address today in our hour-long show? Thanks, everybody, for tuning in and watching us. We really appreciate also support, and also Luke for joining the show. That was super fun. But anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up for today?
Well, check out some of our other videos we have on Najee Sports Talk with Naj, the Score Atlanta account. There's a ton of great interviews and videos on there. And then I just think later to close out December up in Rome for the Georgia Elite, it's going to be a lot of fun. We are just going to try to enjoy the 3 days. We're going to talk to the kids kind of during the practice days leading up to the game, get to know them. And then I think the broadcast is going to be phenomenal. Najee is going to be in the booth for the senior game. That will be fun. He'll call it with Matt Stewart. And it's just an exciting event. You'll get to see these kids in the all-star setting. We'll have so many different colleges represented, so many different programs. So be sure to tune in. They'll be on December 29th. We've got 4 games for you, and it will just be fun. So keep up after Christmas, after the holidays. Enjoy that. And then kind of before New Year's, before these big college football games kick off, check out the Georgia Elite Classic. It'll be a lot of fun.
Definitely. We appreciate y'all tuning in. We will see you guys in the next one. This is our last show for the rest of the year. We will be actually back. We're not going to do one next week because we'll be doing the Classic all week, essentially. And then after that, we're going to be off on a break. So we'll probably be back after the 8th. So probably around this show, probably around like the 11th, 12th, we'll see it again. But appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll see you guys in the new year. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year to everybody, and we'll see you guys then.
See you guys.
Peace.